Hello! So, with having owned the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro for more than 6 months now, I figured I'd talk about my experiences with it and why it might be a really good camera for product shooting. So, with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Now, as I talked about in my last video, recently I've been working on a spec ad for Austin East Cider. So if you're interested in seeing updates for that, go ahead and check out my Instagram. I post all of my film-related stuff there, and a link should also be in the description if you're interested. But circling back to that, the project has definitely been taking longer than I'd like. I've actually been jumping on a few AC gigs here and there, and some other jobs I've been picking up. So I'm making excuses, but I have been jumping around quite a bit. That being said, today I'd like to take a break and talk about my experiences shooting with this camera in relation to product shooting. Now, first let's jump into the discussion of color science and shooting in RAW. But before we do, if you have time and enjoy the video, a like is, as always, very much appreciated. If you want to see more like this, a subscription is also very much appreciated. But if not, that dislike button works extra well if you hit it twice. Okay, so now back to the color science and RAW shooting. Actually, really quick, focusing on the Generation 5 color science, which is their most recent color science, the skin tones as well as the highlight roll-offs are actually really improved, and overall it's just a more flat profile. Even with the Generation 4 color science, you were getting the full dynamic range of the sensor. This is just kind of a different interpretation. So the good thing is you can kind of switch back and forth and figure out which one you like more. Now specifically onto the 6K Pro. I find the sensor actually works really well with the Generation 5 color science, and it kind of should because it was designed somewhat in tandem. And now kind of weaving back from the general areas of the 6K Pro, we'll go more specifically into product shooting. One of the most important things when shooting products is getting accurate colors. And not only getting accurate colors, but getting colors that you can take the data and manipulate. Now the important thing here is being able to match what you shoot to what the brand actually wants. So if a brand has a specific color on a can, you generally want to match that in the images you shoot. This is just to kind of keep their brand uniform across the board, keeps all the products looking the same. You really don't want to obscure. You can sometimes light with different gels, make it a little bit different, but by and large, you want to keep it accurate. So the great thing is, this is one area where the 6K Pro very much shines. Actually, the color separation itself, which is kind of where the colors have a drastic contrast between them, is fantastic in this model. This is made possible by the color science, the color depth, and the bitrate. Now the great thing about the 6K Pro is it actually records a ton of data, so you can take those colors and say they don't exactly match what you're trying to match. You can go ahead and take them into DaVinci Resolve and basically move the colors exactly where you need them, as well as be able to separate them pretty easily with qualifiers. Now I actually used to shoot quite a few product shots on Sony's camera systems, and in comparison, it's basically night and day. Especially when shooting in something like S-Log, you find that a lot of the colors and the color data just isn't there. And that's just because on the low end, Sony doesn't record enough data. Now, even on their higher end stuff, such as the Venice, which I was watching a TV show that was shot on a Venice recently, and the skin tone qualifiers ended up looking muddy and kind of going beyond the skin. So I don't know if that was the Sony camera package's fault or the colorist's fault, but it's definitely something that I've personally dealt with Sony's lower end cameras, so I could only assume that it has something to do with the hardware even further up, and S-Log just being a little bit muddy in general. Now, I'm not here to slander S-Log. I love S-Log, I've used it a ton, but I just did want to note that there's a difference in the color separation. Now, moving on to the resolution, the actual ability to shoot in 6K might seem like overkill for most applications. However, in product shooting specifically, this is a huge benefit, because not only can you crop into an object and digitally move, but you can actually get more detail on specific items once you've cropped in, so that you can see the product clearly and still get some extra movement. And thankfully, the 6K is a high quality 6K that gives you a lot of color data. And speaking of data, that actually transitions us nicely into our next point, that the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro can shoot internally in RAW, which is something that I'm pretty sure no other camera in this price bracket can actually match. Now, we all know that RAW isn't 100% necessary. It's kind of a nice to have feature, but especially when working with clients, it's a really great thing to have, because then you can go ahead and change the actual data and apply slightly different settings. And finally, another feature I wanted to point out was the ability to do actually really decent slow motion. So the 6K Pro actually allows you to shoot 2.8K in 120 frames per second, which is great in itself, but the detail of the actual image I found, especially with color separation specifically, is really good, even when compared to things like the 4K on the Sony FX3. So with that, let me know if I missed any features or if you agree or disagree with this camera pick. I personally think the 6K Pro is a fantastic budget option, but if you have another opinion, please let me know, because I'm here to learn as well. Anyway, that's all I have. As always, I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.